Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Criterion learning series. We're going to be talking about offer letters today. So we're going to go ahead and get started right here. I do want to remind everybody that we do have a chat and a Q&A where you can ask questions or make comments on things. If you do have any questions on stuff, we're here to answer those questions. So feel free to use the chat or the Q&A for that. So let me go ahead and switch to my browser here. And let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on with offer letters. You should be able to see my browser. Let me just make sure. All right, so here's self-service. Obviously, like to start off here. I wanted to point out there is a way to generate images now in a lot of different AI tools. So this is not my misspelling. You can blame computers for that. But just a little fun thing I found out today. You can generate images. So let's talk about this now. A lot of this is going to be set up, of course. So we're going to jump right into the setup of the system here. And happen to be on forms, but what we're going to be doing is a few different things for offer letters. Now, the very first thing you need to do before you can really set up a form or use offer letters is to come up with at least one workflow for your offer letters. So I'm going to go down to workflows, and I will show you a workflow that I have configured here. I happen to have called it offer letter. Of course, you can call it anything you like. Just the type needs to be called offer letter. So if you need one maybe for internal offer letters versus external offer letters or something like that, you may want to use that called like offer letter internal versus offer letter external, or maybe you base it off of department or location or something. Of course, you can call the name whatever you like. It just does need to have the type of offer letter. Right. The module where it's going to be used. So this is, I just mentioned internal and external. So internal would be HR. That's what make a job change on somebody. And then self-service would be something, let's say, the manager might be doing. All right, so that's where that's going to be. This is going to be also where recruiting is going to happen. You'll notice we don't have a separate thing for recruiting. This is just where that's available. All right, so this might be the group that it applies to. I did not put one on here, but you possibly could have one for, let's say, an internal one for job changes. Maybe there's different ones for different groups of employees, something like that. All right, as we've talked about before with workflows, you may want to have auto actions happen after a certain amount of time to automatically approve or reject it. Maybe not a great idea for this because the candidate is going to be the one approving it. You probably don't want to accept it for them. So probably not a great idea to have an auto approve or auto reject on an offer letter. All right, here you'll see, of course, that it does need to be active to be used. So this does need to be checked off. And then possibly you have multiple approvers in here. For an example, if you had this going to a group or a certain job title where maybe there's multiple people, you may want to have multiple people approving it. Or maybe you're just naming multiple people. Again, you may need this multiple approve turned on. That's obviously your decision. I don't have that turned on because each of mine is one particular person. All right, and then the confirmation text. So as they're approving it, you may want to have a custom message for the verifiers and so forth. All right, now when we get down to the bottom, of course, the initiator is going to be, the person who's doing this. Could be like the recruiter, could be the hiring manager, might be an HR user. That's who the initiator is. It's always going to be here as the first person. You can't change anything. That works for any workflow that's out there. And then you need to decide, how does it actually get approved internally? And then, of course, the person who's accepting the offer, the candidate or the employee. And then there does need to be at least one notification after approval so that you can let people know that this offer was accepted. So you'll see here, I've put down CFO or Chief Financial Officer, CEO, and then there's the candidate who's accepting it, and then it goes over to Ted. So how do you do these? Of course, what you do is you would just click add, and then the step here would be a verification because verifications happen before approval. So it'd be verified internally. And then you could choose the performer. So this would be a named person. So you might go through here and find one person. Now, if you did the multiple approve, you could select more than one person. You'll notice it does say employees. But the idea, of course, is that you're looking for specific people who are going to be involved in that approval. And you can select one or more people if you're going to do that. All right. The employee group, of course, could be a group that are going to be involved. Now, a group could be one person, but it could also be a group of multiple people. And again, that multi-approver you just saw up there at the top, perhaps everybody in the group needs to approve that. Maybe it's just one person in the group. They need to approve it and then it moves forward. So maybe you got a group called HR and there's 4 people in there. As long as one person reviews it and makes sure everything is good, then that person can accept it and move it forward. All right, org type. So this would be based off your org structures. As you may be aware, you can have up to 4 org structures in your system. The names here would be your names. So you might call it supervisor, direct report, dotted line, manager, whatever it happens to be, those names would show up there. That's set up in your code tables. And then the information is on the employment screen of the employee. So that's where that is. Mine happens to be called manager and I only have 1 set up. You might have 3 or 4 or some other number there. So you'll see those. So if I do this, I then say the manager is going to be involved. And then this would be the levels. So from the initiator, how many levels up do we go? So do we go to 1 direct report, direct manager, 2 the indirect manager, et cetera, up the chain of command, the food chain as you were. So you can do whatever you like in that situation. Here is going to be 1 or more positions. So I happen to have them as separate steps in mind. You could put them together in one if you wanted to, and maybe do that multiple approver. So you might do like this in 1 step and then multi-approver. I did it as separate ones, but you're naming a position, and then there might be 1 or more people, 1 or more people in that position that would be approving that. So in mine, I have 1 person as CFO, 1 person as CEO. So it's just 1 in each one. But it's possible, maybe like HR generalist, maybe you've got 2 and 1 or more of them need to accept that. And then these other 2 are the workflow from the position screen of the initiator, or if it happens to be the employee you're doing this for, it's from the employee's record. So that is on the position screen. All right, so that's that right there. Now, the approver, now it's not already here, but the approver is always going to be the candidate who's going to be accepting the offer. So keep this as the candidate here. That's the person who's accepting it. You wouldn't want, I don't think, some other random employee or position or whatever accepting the offer for a candidate. That doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. So choose the candidate in that situation. And then, as I mentioned, you do need to have at least 1 notifier after it's accepted to let that person know that, or 1 or more people know that the offer was accepted or possibly rejected. So you'll see, I have 1 here. If you don't put a notifier here and you go to hit save, you'll get a message saying a notifier is required. So you can't skip that step. It'd be the same performers as you saw previously, but you need to have at least 1 notifier or notification. All right. So once you've done that, of course, you would save your changes there and you've got your workflow configured. Now you may say, hey, this is a pretty good workflow. I want to use this for other ones. You, of course, could clone it and then maybe make tweaks for other departments or something like that. So that's what the clone button is here for if you ever need that. All right, so once you have the workflow configured, now you can set up an offer letter template if you would like. You can also go right into using the offer letters. You don't need to set up a template, but it might be very useful if you already have like a standard that you already use. You could use that. Now, what we're doing right now is we're doing them as forms. So if you're used to doing forms, you may be familiar with these. I happen to have 1 here already created called offer letter. Now, it could be called anything. You could call this anything I like, just like the workflow, I call it anything I like, but the type does matter. The type needs to be offer letter. So I might call this, offer letter for accounting or something, because it's just 1 for the accounting department. So you can do whatever you like there. The type, as I mentioned, does need to be offer letter. I've got 2 different ones in my data. Ignore that. You should probably have 1. There's actually a code table, like a code that got added to your system when we introduced this that added offer letter in there. Let me just talk about that real quick so that you can see that, because some clients and users have already created different types in there, document types that may be called offer letters, but the one that we added is this one right here. This is that one you just saw that also said offer letter. This is like the old version. In fact, for ease of use for me, I'm going to call this old. All right, and I probably should make it inactive so I don't use that accidentally. But this offer letter one is the one that we added, offer underscore letter. You're certainly welcome to change the description. Don't change the code. Change the code, it won't work right, and then you'll have a problem trying to use it as an offer letter. So you can see how that works there. Of course, you could set the location code if you want to. It would be a candidate document, obviously, in this situation. It's not a resume, it's not an LMS document or a cover letter, so you don't need to worry about those. But it is a candidate document. This is the default of how it was configured. Of course, if you want to put it in other languages, you can do that there. All right, so back to the form. Let me go back to my offer letter form here. All right, and now I only have one because I made the other one inactive. All right, so of course, now here's that workflow I just created. Now you may have made multiple workflows for offer letter, and you would see them here. You'll notice you're only seeing offer letter workflows because of that type. That's the only one we choose. So you can't accidentally choose one for some other change. You can only choose offer letter workflows. Of course, your description, now I made mine very generic. They're all just offer letters. Your description could be very long and detailed of exactly what this is. It could match the name, whatever you're doing there. That's fine there. And of course, you can do it in multiple languages. Of course, it needs to be active to be used. So I have is active selected here. If you want to share it with the employee after they are hired, or if this is used internally, if they want to see that offer letter, you can check that box there. That's completely up to you. I do recommend that you lock it after approval so somebody can't go back in and make changes to it or something. So don't check this box. This is off by default on every form you create. Unless you want somebody to edit a form, offer letter, or any other forms, don't check this box. But if you did, that means somebody could edit the form after it's approved. Right, the size in my situation, it is a letter size, but possibly yours could be an A4. So you'll see those options in there. You don't need to worry about initiate by employee. That would be if I was doing something in self-service from the forms menu. That's not how it works. So you just leave that blank. All right, now let me show you an example of an offer letter. So here you can see what this looks like. I've added an image in here. Now I started with a blank. Now it's certainly possible that you could have imported something in. Maybe you already have a PDF that you like and you want to import that in. You're certainly welcome to do that. And then you could add fields to your offer letter using the stuff on the right. We do have a learning on work forms, so you could revisit that if you want to see how forms work. But just to show you here, this is an image as an example. This is a text block. So this is a whole block. What I did is I just typed this in. So you'll see here, I just double clicked it, typed it in. Now, you'll notice here, I've got certain things where I have at first name or at title, things like that. Those are going to be tokens from our database. So the person's name, at John. So it's a Dear John or whatever it is. The title is going to be the job title. So if you're using like an internal one, or even for the external, for the candidates, it's going to use the job title of that. Now, you certainly don't have to do that. You could use these ones with the $sign, so you're prompted to put that value in instead of it being pre-filled. All right, so if you want to use a different job title, you can do that. So that goes to these ones with the $sign. These are ones where you will be prompted for these values when you select this template. So in my situation, start date, manager, salary, pay rate, frequency, and acceptance date, recruiter email. You could have other ones in here too. Maybe there's some other information you want to put in here that you want to be prompted for when you create this offer letter. Now you'll notice here I've got various stuff that has nothing to do with like prompts. I just typed in, we offer comprehensive benefits, employment with us is at will, whatever. This is all just text that you can type in, or you can of course copy and paste. If you want to format it, of course, you have your formats up here for formatting the text. All right, now I might have other things on an offer letter. Maybe you, have an image of a signature or something like that. You certainly could add those other things, other fields over here on the right. I made mine just pretty generic. So you see how that works there. All right, and of course, you would save your changes after you're done this. And then when you're done, you can hit save and close to close this out. Now, if you save, of course, you can just like cancel out too. And then we'll just go to the latest save. All right, so that's how you create the form there. Now, you can link the offer letter to one or more jobs, positions, as we call them here. So let me show you how that would work here. You can go to a position, let's say accounting supervisor as an example, And when I go to recruiting, I'm going to have a drop-down menu here that says offer letter. So this would be the default offer letter for the accounting supervisor if I were to open up this position to find some new candidates and some new employees. So this is where you may have different offer letters for different jobs that you're hiring for. All right, so you might have one offer letter accounting supervisor, offer letter accounting, etc., that you would use and link those to those various jobs. This is not a requirement. You can certainly use an offer letter, any other offer letter if you want to, but this would allow you to say this is the default. Right, so that's how you can link that. As I mentioned, you can link it to more than one. If I wanted to put it here under this accounts payable position, put it there. And of course, it doesn't need to just be all about accounting. I could say for food vendor, right? It uses the same offer letter there. That's completely up to you. All right, so that's how you can link that to a position. And that's going to lead us over to recruiting, where we might actually send the offer letter out to somebody. So let me go over to recruiting. It's not loading. Here we go. And here are my various open positions that I have out here. Of course, I've got 11. You might have, 2. You might have 20. It doesn't really matter as far as the offer letter is concerned. And so let me just choose the accounting supervisor because that's one I just happen to be looking at. And here you go. You can see, all the settings on this. Now, what you don't see is you don't see the offer letter information on here. That's just behind the scenes. But you can kind of see that right here, the settings here. Here I've got a candidate, Henry Jones. He's my candidate for this position. And let me just check one thing I didn't happen to notice. Ted happens to be the recruiter. So let me show you also in self-service. I could do this through self-service as a hiring manager. I could send an offer letter. But here I am looking at Henry. And right here, I have create offer letter under this menu where I could do other things like sending forms and doing background checks. And I'm obviously hiring them as this person accepts the offer. So this is right here. Now, as I mentioned, I can do this in self-service. So if I go to that job posting here, I believe it's this one, and I go to that candidate, here's Henry, I can, under details, create an offer letter right here. It's the same process, right? The only difference is I'm doing it as the recruiter here. Here I'm doing it as a hiring manager. So this might be, for the hiring manager, maybe there's a different workflow based off of the groups and stuff you're doing. Now, I happen to also be the recruiter and the hiring manager, so there's not going to be any difference. But it's possible you had a different workflow because of the groups or something that somebody's in. All right, I'm going to show you from the back end because it's the same process in self-service here, and I'll do create offer letter. All right, so here you can see the various fields that were in that offer letter there. Here, this one is listed because that's the one. I only have one offer letter template. If I had multiple, I could choose a different one, but this is the default that I set up on the job. So that's why I see that there. I also have the option to generate an offer letter. I'll get into that in a second here, where the system can generate a letter for you. But here I could put in the various dates and so forth. Like I want them to accept by, let's say, Friday. And here's my email address. Here's the start date. Let's just say it's going to be on the 15th. And their manager is going to be Andre here. And, whatever the title is. So you can see how you could easily do these things. Annual salary of $80,000. And I could do this here. Now, when I hit preview, it's going to show that offer letter with that stuff in there. Oh, it should. It was working for me. I'm not sure what happened. But it will preview this. Let me show you the preview of the generate so you can see. But it's going to show you the text of the offer letter there and exactly how it did look. So not sure why that gave me an error message. I'll have to report that back to our team. But let me go ahead and do the other option, which is to generate an offer letter. Now, this is a little different because the system is going to come up with the text for your offer letter, and you can edit it after it's generated this offer letter. Now, I do want to mention some things. We have an update coming out here in a few weeks. Included in that update, just to give you a little sneak peek, is that many of these fields will be pre-filled from the candidate's information. As an example, we already know their name. They may have their address in there. Of course, we know their job title. And some of these other things, we already have that information. It will pre-populate that, so you don't need to worry about it. Today, I need to do that. So that's really the only difference there. So I can say this is AFC Richmond. oops, Richmond, and today's date. And I think his name was Henry Jones. And here I'll put down his address. Let's just say he lives in Anytown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Company name is the same. So you'll see that here. The scheduled hours. So you might want to say like full time 40 hours or something like that. I'm just going to go down and fill these fields out. I'm going to fill them all out just so you get an idea of how this works here. Let me start up here. 1, 2, 3 Main Street. Let's just say any town is in Massachusetts. All right, and this is going to be accounting supervisor, and the salary I think I put in 80,000. Benefits, so medical, dental, vision, and retirement. Okay, what's the expiration date for this offer? Because it might expire if he doesn't accept it by a certain time frame. So maybe I say it expires on Tuesday. He needs to accept it by Friday. He's going to contact Ted Lasso if he has any questions, or you'll see a department. I could just say like HR department, something like that. My name here, so Ted Lasso, and contact Ted at CriterionHCM.com, and pay rate frequency here, so annual, because I have the pay rate up there. My position is manager. Here's the manager for that employee. I don't remember who I selected before. Oh, Andre. Okay, and he's going to be full-time. All right, so I filled in all the fields. Now, I don't, of course, don't have to. If you don't want to put something in, you don't need to do that. But I'm going to hit generate offer letter. Cross my fingers. Oh, there we go. Okay, it did work. I don't know why my template didn't work. But here you can see an example of this. Now, I can edit this text. You'll see here. I can just type in whatever I like. Dear Henry Jones. Maybe I just want to say Dear Henry. Something like this. Maybe I don't need this address block or whatever. I can edit this message however I like. Of course, I could just scrap this entire message and copy and paste in something else. But here you'll notice I've got this in here, and I can go ahead and submit this one if I'm happy with it. If I'm not, I could actually go back and like fix some fields. So maybe I misspelled something. I don't want to fix it here. I want to fix it on those fields. I could go back and fix them here if I'd like to. But whatever you want to do there. Or maybe his name is Hank. All right, so Dear Hank, blah, 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 blah. There's my information on there. And go ahead and submit this. Now, when I hit submit, it's going to initiate that workflow. So you may remember the workflow went to the CFO, and then it goes to the CEO, and then it goes to the candidate. So, but that will initiate the workflow. And, I could actually track that here in my workflow right over here. So if I went over to my workflow for offer letters, I can go and track the status of this thing and see how this is going. So I can see here, Leslie needs to approve it, Rebecca, and then it's going to go to the candidate. It's going to go to Henry. He'll hopefully accept the offer, but maybe not, and then go to Ted. Now, I do want to talk about this. I'm not going to go through each step here because I don't have time to jump into these various users. But if the candidate accepts it, we save it as a PDF in their record. Now, they'll see it as a PDF in the email, and they can see it also in the candidate portal, and they can accept or reject it. But if they accept it, it's going to save it as a PDF in their record, and it'll be in their employee record. And depending on if you hit that share with employee, they'll be able to see it. If they reject it, we save a copy of it, but it's not visible to the candidate anymore. If they accept it, they can still see it in the portal. If they reject it, it's gone from them. Now, you can, of course, still see it because maybe they said, hey, I can't start on the 15th. I got a dentist appointment that day. I can start on the 16th, and you want to just fix that in your offer letter and send another one. If they accept the other one, that would show. But you'd be able to see a record of all the offers that were sent if you do send multiple to people. All right. Now, after they accept, of course, Ted, I think he was the notifier, so he'd get the message that he was accepted, and I could then go into recruiting and hire the person into the system. So that step doesn't really change there. I did want to point out one other thing on here is that we can also do this on employees if you do a change to their job. So let's just say Orlando here. I want to give this person a change. I can now have an offer letter in here for changes to here. So maybe I give him a raise or a promotion or something like that. And I would like an offer letter to go out to him. Should see, I'm not sure. sure why I don't. You know what? I think I need to set up one just for HR. But what happens is this button here will have an option to generate an offer letter there. It's the exact same process you just saw with the candidate, except for it'll have the employee information there versus the candidate information. And it will follow the same workflow of everything. And then the employee will be able to accept or reject that offer. So that'll be how that works there. So of course I can put in my pay effective date. As you are probably aware, the pay effective date can be in the past, like maybe Monday, I'm just putting it in today, maybe it's in the future. I can, select a date there. Let's give him a promotion from merchandise seller to customer service representative. Let's go ahead and change all this information there. You'll notice it's like changing a bunch of stuff. And again, I think it's because I don't have the workflow enabled. This would be where I would generate that. I'd have an option here. So you'll have an option to submit or to generate the offer. You don't need to generate the offer if you don't do that internally, or maybe you have some other process in play. Maybe you just send them a letter. It's not a thing they can accept or reject. But if you do have a process, you want to put it in the system, you'll be able to generate. It'll be a little drop. It's not a drop down, it's a drop up button because it's at the bottom of the screen where you'll be able to generate the offer. And it goes through those exact steps. Okay, so that is the offer letter. I did mention that we do have some changes coming in on our next version. We have actually quite a few changes coming into offer letters, but it's not going to drastically affect what I've shown you here. Well, we'll cover it in the webinar, and I may have another session on this, not right away after the update, but maybe in a few months as we revisit this and talk about some of the changes that were in there, just to make sure that we have the latest and greatest information. So I don't know if there's anything that came in the chat, and then let's see on the chat of the questions. So let's look at the questions real quick here. What does the offer letter look like on the external candidate side? So what happens with the candidate is once it's approved internally, so like it goes to CFO and CEO, the candidate's going to get an email with the offer letter attached, and then they could go to the portal to accept it. So if you haven't seen the candidate portal, what that is part of the recruiting. When somebody applies, a portal is generated for them. It does not require a password. They simply verify their information by clicking a link in their email. So when they go to log in, it'll say, click here to verify their login, and then they're in the portal. And then portal has not just the offer letter, it has the any attachments that they added, whether during the application process or after, they can upload attachments. It has any forms that were assigned to them. So if you sent them forms for things, they would be in there. The offer letter. Now, the offer letter only shows when an offer letter is sent. They won't know that there's an offer letter section until it's sent. And then they'll be able to see a PDF version of the offer letter and be able to accept or reject that. And then also, let's assume they accept the offer, or maybe you did it externally, you didn't use our system. They also would show the pre-boarding. So that's what the candidate portal shows. We should probably have a session on that. I'm going to put that on the roadmap because I don't think we've talked about that. There's not really a lot of setup in it, but it's a good idea to kind of show how that works. But that's the question on there. And then that's how that works. So good question with that. I did see the question here about if I use a PDF, then it will use the @ and the $signs. You just need to add them to the form. So you would add them as either a text block or a text field, and you could use that. And then let's see, the last one, can an offer letter request approval process or form be created and sent through a workflow for approvals prior to the offer letter being generated? So right now it requires the offer letter to be generated. We don't have anything in place that you can show everybody the offer and then doesn't generate a letter. So that's how it is currently. Now, if you do think that'd be a great idea, you can always go here and suggest an idea or change to offer letters or anything else in the system. So that's a good segue into this new ideas where you might want to put out here that, hey, you have an idea for a change to offer letters, and you in a new post and you put in your explanation of what you're looking for. And we will certainly consider that. Not everything in here is selected, but we select a large number of these things and add them into the system. So let me revisit my slideshow here just to talk about upcoming things. What we're doing is I'm actually going to go backwards a little bit. I was going through the list of the training that we've done. Last time we talked benefits was about 2 years ago, and there's been a lot of changes since then. So the next couple of sessions, also because there's a new version coming out, we're going to revisit some topics that we've talked about before, benefits and open enrollment. So since the last time we talked about those, there's been a number of changes. So I'm going to revisit those. And then we're going to talk about succession planning in May. This will be after our release, and we have some changes coming in our release to succession planning. So should be useful in there. I do want to state that this last one, the succession planning, might be subject to change depending on the update. There might be things I'm going to put in there that are more important or bigger things that came out, etc. So this one, succession planning, might be subject to change. But next couple of ones, benefits and open enrollment. And we hope if you would like to see those, you'll be there, and we'll see you then. Otherwise, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and we will see you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks again.